Everyone's talking today in our culture about the power of vulnerability, and it's for real, transparency. But if you can add the laughter factor in there, now we're laughing with each other at our own foibles, and we just feel way more connected.
That's Adam Christing. He's an award-winning event MC, popular keynote speaker, president of Clean Comedians, and the author of The Laughter Factor, the 5 humor tactics to link, lift, and lead. So you'll learn 1, why humor matters at work, 2, how to bring the fun, even if you're not funny, and 3, the 5 laugh languages. If you'd like to get a quick summary write-up of the actionable takeaways that Adam shared, I recommend you sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter found at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Pekaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Adam. Adam, welcome.
Hey, Pete, great to be with you.
Well, I'm excited to talk about humor. I think we're hopefully going to have a lot of fun, a lot of laughs along the way. But I'd love it if you could kick us off by sharing, since you've been researching this and presenting on this and writing about this, any intriguing, surprising discoveries you've made about humor at work you want to mention right off the bat?
I think the biggest surprise was just about everybody knows that humor is, there's the old proverb, right? Laughter is the best medicine. So science, as almost everybody knows, is backing that up. Laughter releases endorphins and literally relaxes our bodies. It's just great. It's good for us. I knew that would be coming. But what surprised me was, for example, there's an Oxford study that demonstrates that people who feel safe to play, to laugh, are seeing increases as much as 30% in productivity and collaboration. And so I guess the big aha moment for me was what a bridge builder, how humor is creates cohesion in the workplace. And I like to put it this way, humor is a shortcut to trust.
Tell us more about that. Humor is a shortcut to trust.
Well, there's a very, very famous stand-up comedian. You might have heard of her. Her name was Mother Teresa. Mm-hmm. And obviously not a comedian, but a great humanitarian. And I was struck by what she said one time. She said, a smile is the shortest distance between two people. And so sometimes as business people, as employees, we can feel like, oh, I have to entertain other people or I have to get their attention. And that can be helpful. But when we simply change our physiology and smile, so sometimes I'll be in front of whether it's 20 people or even 2,000 people, and I will have them stand and put their hands up toward the ceiling and smile and look up, and I'll say, hey, suddenly we're a Pentecostal group. Everybody laughs. But what I say is while you're looking up, and even if it's a fake smile on your face, do your best to feel bad. And people start laughing. Because when we make the choice to feel good, when we make the choice to smile, even if it feels a little fake, pretty soon other people are smiling and it becomes contagious. And so a big myth, I think, Pete, is that some people say, well, I'm just not funny. And I don't know that I've ever met a human being who isn't also a humor being. I think it's wired into us. We have a 4-month-old grandson, for example, and he can't talk yet, but he can already smile. He can already laugh. And it's almost always, he doesn't just sit there and think of a funny thought. It's because his mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, tickles him a little bit or makes a face or something, but it's a connector between human beings, and it's available to all of us.
Okay. Well, so then I'm curious, in practice at work, I think people are a little bit perhaps worried about cracking jokes, or how do you recommend we go about bringing more laughter, smile, humor, goodness into work in a professional way that gives us the benefits without the downsides?
I think the first step is you have to give yourself permission. I remember I was a senior in college and I was starting to do some funny speaking and competitive speaking on the college circuit. And I went up to my mentor and I said, Dr. Lewis, do you think I could make it as a comedian, as an entertainer? And he said, I think you can, but what's more important is whether you think you can. And so it can feel scary. It can make you feel nervous. But if you give yourself permission, and even if you don't feel confident, if you act confident and deliver, it could even be a dad joke, It might be wearing something that's a little offbeat that makes people go, hey, that's fun. But just kind of taking that chance, you will almost always be rewarded. Here's the mistake people make. When you tell a joke or try to get someone to laugh, is if they don't, you can feel this awkward silence, right? And so it's tempting for us to say, oh, you don't get it. Or, oh, I'll never do that again. But the secret of the professional humorists, funny speakers, comedians goes back to what Mark Twain said. He said, it takes me 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. And so you can plan for spontaneity. You could lead people in a fun icebreaker, for example, where you take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to be up there doing a Netflix special and being the funniest person in the room, but you can be the orchestrator of fun.
Okay. Can you give us some examples of winning fun icebreakers?
Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as a question. So I'll be with probably 150 people next week at a gathering, and my job is to facilitate the fun. And I could get up there and do some stand-up, and I might do a few jokes, but I'll have them discuss a question around their tables. So for example, I might say, I want you, everybody at your table, say there's 6 or 8 people at your table, talk about the first car you ever drove. And that's not a hilarious question, but you would be surprised the answers that people give are warm-hearted, they're fun. Somebody might say, well, I actually drove a tractor, or when I was 16, I took dad's car for a joyride. And pretty soon people are telling stories that they're not always hilarious, but they're usually fun and they're often connectors. And so then as the facilitator, I might go around and I might say, well, I've got a special prize for who had the oldest car or the coolest convertible or something. And you keep it interactive. So I think one of the keys to remember is people never feel bored when you make them feel engaged.
Well, that's fun. You're right. You're talking about your first car is not belly laughter, slap your knee, kind of rolling in stitches, but it brings back fond memories in terms of, the youth and freedom. And there's just all kinds of some good associations there. And then it can naturally get one person smiling, reminiscing, because, right now, I was a 1989 Chevrolet Celebrity, Adam.
There you go.
And my mom would always remind me that the top was drooping. I don't know how it got loose, but I mean, it was just old and it was drooping. And so I would screw these little tacks in to try and make it go back up, and didn't have an CD or cassette tape player. So I had a little boombox strapped in the passenger seat. And so as you ask that question, I'm reliving these memories. I'm smiling and it's fun. And again, it's a little amusing that the ceiling was drooping, that you had a boombox strapped into there. And it's not laugh out loud riotous, but we're having some fun.
Yes. By the way, is that car for sale? Because that sounds like a fun car to drive.
Oh, no. So I gave it away to my high school girlfriend or college girlfriend. And then later I just said, hey, so whatever happened to the car? And she was like sheepish. She didn't want to admit it. She's like, it was beginning to shake when we approached the highway speeds and make this noise. And my mom said, this is not safe. And so we parted with it.
Yeah.
I think she was hoping to avoid that question her whole life. So I don't know where it ended up, but
See, I love that story. I mean, you just made me laugh several times just by telling a real story. And I have found that sometimes as leaders, for example, or as managers, we have this pressure to seem smart or to be funny or charismatic. But the truth is we can just we can draw out from people shared experiences. So I have other questions I might ask, whether it's an audience or a small group. What's the first job or worst job you ever had? Same kind of thing happens. People go back to their memory bank and they say, for me personally, I worked as a custodian for one day and I had this epiphany, wait a second, I grew up learning magic tricks. I'm like, I don't really want to do this. Not that there's anything wrong at all with being a custodian or a maintenance person, but I'm like, I'm going to start booking myself doing birthday parties. So that leads to a story. Then I can talk about how my first gig was getting paid $5 and all the pizza I could eat. Pretty soon we're telling stories and people can relate. And so one of the things I tell people is the root word of funny is simply fun. don't have to try too hard to be funny. But if you can create a context where people are having fun, you probably still get the credit for it as being the leader or orchestrator. But really, you're not the star, you're the cement kind of holding these things together and connecting people.
Okay. And so doing, I mean, we're enjoying ourselves and we're feeling more connected, and that's just good. Are there any other key benefits that emerge when we do more of this funny, fun, good stuff?
Well, you'll notice it's really hard to feel disconnected from someone when you're laughing with them. And it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. We want to shift from laughing at people to laughing with them. So I'm excited to see this mockumentary. You've probably heard about Spinal Tap, the latest sequel, right? And I just know that if I go with my wife or daughter or whoever I go with, we're going to be laughing. And the first thing we'll do is we'll look at each other and we'll be like, oh my gosh, we're experiencing it together. So sometimes, and this is more and more common with AI, is we're typing a prompt and we might even say, hey, tell me a joke. And that can be a fun moment, but it's not the same as that heart-to-heart connection that you have when you share a laughter. So I have discovered 5 humor tactics. I also call them laugh languages. And you just experienced with me together, we experienced one of them, which I call in-jokes. And so now that I know about your first car, imagine if I sent you some tax and I said, just in case you need these for your next car or something like that. Now we've got this little bond about your car. Or if you said, how's it going doing the birthday party magic shows? I'm like, oh, he was listening to me. And we create this shared experience that we can retell, we can relive. And you never had to come up with a funny monologue to tap into the power of inside humor.
Yeah, understood. Well, let's hear the other tactics.
Yeah, well, the very first one might be the most essential, and it's simply surprise. And so, for example, my mom is not a professional comedian. I have personally worked with over 100 comedians, some famous ones like Martin Short, and some people have never heard of, and they're all great. But I was thinking about what makes my mom so funny. It's just because she will say surprising things and just this genuineness. So it might be as simple as sending someone on their half birthday, like 6 months before their birthday. You can buy a birthday card that is literally a half card, and people go, what? And they open it and say, hey, it's your half birthday. Well, that tells them a couple things. 1, you're fun. And 2, you're thoughtful. You remembered their birthday is 6 months away. That's just one example. Sometimes in our work, we will go to Walmart and we'll buy the $3 bouncy ball that you might give to a preschool kid. And I didn't even know you could do this, but you can. You can take a Sharpie and write right on the ball, take it to your post office, put postage on it with their address. And so I'll say something like, hey, Pete, I had a ball in your podcast. Imagine the mail carrier comes to your home or office and delivers this thing. I have sometimes sent people very expensive gifts with, my logo or swag. Nobody cares about that. But if I make them laugh, if I make them feel like a kid again, if I use the element of surprise, you will automatically put a smile on someone's face.
Yes, I'm digging this theme here a lot in terms of like we reduce the pressure quite a bit as we're thinking about fun as opposed to dazzling someone with utter hilarity that's competes with the greats on their Netflix specials.
That's right. Yeah, I think humor ideally should take the pressure off even the person sharing it. So I'll give you another of the what I call laugh languages is wordplay. Some people, the jokes are like, you belong in a penitentiary and there's dad jokes, but I have noticed, like I'm in airports all the time. Top selling books are dad joke books. Even Nate Bargatze, who doesn't do a lot of dad jokes, he does a lot of dad type humor. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we don't call these like weird uncle jokes. It's because they're safe, they're cute. Sometimes they're so bad, they're good. So if you discover that your laugh language is wordplay, just like own it. Just be the pun meister, and use clever quotes. And sometimes you can get away with not even coming up with them yourself. You might say, hey, before we start our meeting, I have a Yiddish proverb for you. If you're looking for a helping hand, there's one at the end of your arm. And, that's not going to kill at the Comedy Store in Hollywood, but you might put a smile on somebody's face and get them kind of chuckling and win them over. So one of the keys is to not try to be funny in a way that you're not comfortable with. Another of the laugh languages is amplify. And this is the person who can take a painful little frustration and just turn it into a 5-minute rant or a monologue. If you find yourself someone who exaggerates stories, that might be your favorite humor tactic. So usually what makes you laugh is an indication of the type of humor that's ideal for you to use.
Well, you're bringing back a fond memory. I remember I was in a studio. We were shooting some video, and we were just kind of hanging out nearby, eating some food, and someone just started playing this, just invented this game. I don't know where I came up with it, but it was sort of like a knock, knock, who's there? Someone starts, the other person responds. Someone would start with a job, and they'd say, oh, I used to work at an ice cream shop. And then the other person was supposed to reply with, why'd you quit? And then they would put in some kind of a pun related to it. Like, oh, they made me work Sundays. And so we're kind of, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
It's kind of cringy,
but I decided to split, right? And what happens is people go, oh my gosh, what's the next person going to say? And so it creates this anticipation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember we just started laughing so hard.
Yeah.
We were scolded. The producer marched up to the room and said, guys, we're trying to film. You really can't be laughing that loud. And so it was very memorable because none of these jokes were hilarious. And yet, again, there's that connecting element. We're all in that groove together.
That's right. And you felt like it was like this exclusive shared moment. I'll tell you, I'm not in comedy clubs like I used to be in my younger days, but the best comedy club I've ever been to is in Pasadena, California. It's where like Steve Martin and Robin Williams, a lot of famous comedians got their start way back, 70s, 1980s, 90s. And it's called the Ice House because literally it was a brick building where they would store ice. And everybody thought, well, why is this club? I get more laughs at this club than down the street. And it's because the acoustics in that room, the intimacy, that like the laughter was bouncing off the walls. And so if you find someone on your team laughing about something, have more of that, dish up more of that. And you're going to find the laughter bouncing from person to person. And what happens is there are certain radio or shows or podcasts where they aren't even professional comedians, but when you listen and you feel like they are having such a good time, I want to be part of that party.
Absolutely. And can you share the final language, the poke?
Yes, that is the one. And maybe that's best to share last because I think it's the trickiest. And this is the idea of poking fun at yourself and gently teasing other people. And of course, it can go way off the rails if you get into 3 Ps that I avoid: politics, I avoid any prejudice, and personally, I avoid profanity. And so people are like, well, what else can you have fun with? But if you start with what I call self-effacing humor, I don't call it self-deprecating because that sounds like you're having digestion issues, but I call it self-effacing because if you bring yourself down a couple of pegs, a couple things happen. Your coworkers go, oh, she's cool. And even more importantly, I can relate to that. So we find each other's flops very funny. And as leaders, as colleagues, and this is not making yourself look like an idiot, but it's just being honest about when you messed up. Like when I tell people I was once a director of a film and I cast myself in the film because I'd raised the money. And I tell people, true story, Pete, I say, my acting was so bad, I got cut out of my own movie. Mm-hmm. And they smile, but they also go, oh, I can relate to that because I've had failures in my work, in my career, or my marriages, or with my kids. And so suddenly, and this is kind of a corny word, but I still own it, I call it authenticity. Everyone's talking today in our culture about the power of vulnerability, and it's for real, transparency. But if you can add the laughter factor in there, now we're laughing with each other at our own foibles, and we just feel way more connected.
Can you give us some additional examples? I guess like we probably don't want to draw attention to the fact that, say, we're in way over our head. We fundamentally lack the competence required to excel in a given role. Although that does happen.
That could be your last monologue. Yeah.
So what are some good zones of self-effacing humor?
Well, sometimes like the story you just told is an example of that, where you stumbled into something, these guys, where you just couldn't stop laughing. So think about times with your family or your friends where you were busting up, and some of those things might not be appropriate in a work setting. And my golden rule is, if in doubt, leave it out. But when you talk about, like, let's say you're starting a meeting and it's running a little bit late, maybe you tell a story about how you were late to your own wedding, or you were late to some dear person's funeral, or something that's kind of personal, but where you're not the star, you kind of the one who flopped. You will likely get people laughing, but also you get people going, oh, I can relate to you now. So positive humor just makes us way more approachable. Now, the second part of poke that we haven't really unpacked yet is it's still effective to, whatever you want to call it, tease, josh, roast other people, if they feel like you care about them first. So one time I was hired to roast 11 executives with a big accounting firm called KPMG. And I spent like 20 hours prepping for this thing. But here was my little secret. I discovered what they're most loved for, each of these. I think it was 11 different executives. And then I gave that a twist where they knew I was actually celebrating them, but I was poking them. So one guy really was a great dresser, and everyone knew it. So if I poked a little fun at his ties or something like that, he was so confident in his look and his attire that it totally worked. And everybody was busting up. And the key was the person I was poking was laughing the hardest.
Yeah. That's a real nice twist on the roast there. And I think I've seen a couple roasts, and it's like, I guess might be fun for the audience, but the person being roasted is like, I don't know if they're still friends after this.
Yeah, it's not a good sign when you need to bring your attorney to a roast, right? Is this a trial? Yeah. But I do think maybe a better word than roast would be toasting. So, for example, let's say you've been asked to be best man in a wedding or something like that. Well, it's pretty traditional that you might give a toast. And some people, I think, make the mistake of, well, first, they probably drink too much before they speak. But next, they just turn it into like a Tom Brady kind of roast. And that's probably not appropriate. But what you want to do is find a couple things everyone loves about the best man and then have some fun with it. And so I think it's important that we feel linked with people before we laugh about them. And once we do that, I can't tell you what to say because I don't know the person that you might be toasting or roasting. But before I speak at an event, for example, I want to know, what are the acronyms that we can all joke about? Almost every company has some funky acronym. Like in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be with the air traffic controllers, like 300 of them in Las Vegas. And they must have 15 different acronyms. And so I'll have some fun with them. But at the same time, I will be affirming the fact that, hey, you guys keep us safe and we appreciate it. And so I might butcher some and kind of play fish out of water. But I think we listen our way into the best laughter rather than trying to talk our way into it.
Now, Adam, I guess I'm wondering if 300 air traffic controllers are all in the same place at the same time, not directing air traffic. Are we going to be in some trouble during this event?
I will send a memo to you and your listeners so nobody flies that day. No, I thought that same question, but I think it's great that, talk about a high pressure job, right? But so for example, this just came to me. I might say, I came out here on Delta, which turns out stands for Do Every Leg Through Atlanta. Now, again, at a comedy club, that's going to bomb. But for this group, they might, oh yeah, we route a lot of flights through Atlanta. So it goes back to that kind of inside humor.
Yes, that's good. Well, do you have any more guidelines on you? So when in doubt, leave it out, avoid the politics, the prejudice, the profanity, be connected before you tease, do more celebrating. Any other pro tips for preventing us from getting into some trouble?
Well, here's a really big tip that I rarely shared it. It's in my book a little bit, but I want to emphasize it is we think and we put this pressure on ourselves like, okay, I want to make everybody laugh with my sales presentation or whatever. And that's great. But if you can laugh at other people's humor, several awesome things happen. One, they know you've listened to them and you're affirming them. And so I think it's important to not only discover your unique laugh language, but tune into how do other people go for laughs? Does she tell hilarious stories? Does he love to give people gifts and then enjoy that with them? And what you're telling people is like, you're awesome. You're great. And you make me laugh. And you don't want to force it. We're having a fairly serious dialogue right now, but we're laughing together and it just feels natural. Another tip would be if you do decide to do a joke, and I have plenty of good, clean jokes you can pull from. The temptation there, it's so easy to slip into this, is you tell the punchline and then you step on it. So, for example, there's one of my favorite comedians of all time is Stephen Wright, and his laugh language clearly is wordplay. So he might say a joke like, I put spot remover on my dog, now he's gone. But if I were to tell that joke and step on it, I might say, I put spot remover on my dog, now he's gone. And I put in a nervous laugh, or I say to my listeners, oh, you didn't get it, or I'm not doing that again. And so you have to be like, maybe the greatest talk show host in TV history was Johnny Carson. When he would tell a joke that didn't get a laugh, he would just sit with it. And it created this almost delicious awkwardness, and it actually became funnier than the joke. So after you do share a punchline, pause. It really shows confidence, actually, and you'll more likely get a laugh. But if you don't, be okay with that, and then you'll probably get a laugh anyway.
All right. Well, Adam, tell me any other top do's and don'ts you want to make sure to mention.
Well, one thing people never think about, I mentioned this a little bit with the Ice House, is I like to say, the closer they get, the funnier I get. So for example, if you're leading a workshop, or even if it's in a conference room, I've noticed this in schools, in churches, people tend to want to sit away from the presenter. And so if you can take 5 minutes before your presentation starts and pack them in closer. So what happens is you get this effect of people looking at each other going, oh, this is fun, I'm enjoying it. And they can laugh together. And so it does matter how you set up your room. If you're doing a Zoom, for example, instead of thinking I have to entertain 20 people on this Zoom, pull up one person at a time and have a moment with them. Invite them to participate in a icebreaker or do a trivia thing. One time I hosted an event was heavy duty stuff about software, and we had a panel, and man, people can just go right to sleep with a panel. So we turned it into a little bit more of a game show. We covered the same questions that we were going to cover, but by making it fun and interactive, we made the panelists come to life more, and we had the audience feel like, oh, this is fun. I can actually sit through this hour-long panel and know it's not going to be a lecture. Nobody wants to be lectured.
Big thanks to Adam for sharing his wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsored checkout is Strawberry.me Career Coaching. Having real clarity and direction can make or break your career. If it seems like you're putting in the work but not seeing your career take off, some coaching might be just the ticket. Strawberry.me matches you with certified career coaches who help you gain clarity on what you really want next in your career, develop a results-driven strategy, and stay accountable. And they can also help you flourish beyond career issues. I had a fantastic session with my coach, Brett, about handling stress from so many responsibilities in so many areas. He was fun. He was wise. He just really got me. We had some laughs and a good time and a good rapport. And he gave me an exercise that has been so quick and so effective for me. I've been doing it every day. So if you're ready to take control and build momentum in your career, go to strawberry.me/awesome to claim your $50 credit. That's strawberry.me/awesome. Because awesome careers don't just happen, you make them happen. One sponsored checkout is LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is your 24/7 hiring partner. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. Here's how it works. You post your job and quickly get in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. You can post for free or pay to promote to reach 3 times as many qualified applicants. And you can feel confident that you're reaching the best, as 72% of small and medium businesses using LinkedIn say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality candidates. From there, share it with your network to let them know you're hiring. And here's a fun fact. If you add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture, you get twice as many qualified candidates. So find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/beawesome. That's linkedin.com/BEAWESOME to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. One sponsor to check out is Quince. That nip in the air means two things. One, decorative gourd season is approaching. And two, it's time to check inventory on fall staples and fill in any gaps. And Quince can help with that masterfully, as they have all kinds of goodies you'll wear nonstop, such as a super soft 100% Mongolian cashmere sweater starting at $60. But that low price does not mean low quality. I've been loving my Quince beanie during these cooler temperatures. I treated that hat rough, but it keeps bouncing back and holding up like a champ. And Quince has really emerged as something of a go-to across the board. I keep seeing bags my wife orders from Quince appearing at our doorstep. So keep it classic and cool this fall with long-lasting staples from Quince. Go to quince.com/awesome for free shipping on your order and 365 days returns. That's QUINCE.com/awesome for free shipping and 365-day returns. One more time, quince.com/awesome. Lovely, thank you. Well, now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
The meaning of communication is the response you get. And so sometimes we think the meaning of communication is our content, but really it's the reaction to the content. It's how you make people feel. It's, did you transfer the conviction that you have to someone else?
Okay. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
I am almost a cult follower of a book that was written way back in the 1980s by Robert Cialdini, and it's been updated many times. And I see you nodding your head as we're talking here, called Influence. And some of the studies in that book have just blown my mind. The power of social proof, for example. I know I'm being kind of theoretical, but in my business, I'll give you an example. Choose clear over clever. So one time we were mailing a sales letter, basically, to convention planners in Las Vegas. And I thought, I'm going to be so clever. I'm going to say, don't gamble on the entertainment at your next convention. And because they were going to be in Vegas, I thought that would be so clever. But we decided, you know what, let's test that. And this goes back to the social experiment that Cialdini talks about with social proof is, let's test that. So we tested a different headline that said, give your group the gift of laughter. The first one got 0 responses. The second one, I think we booked 6 clean comedians into these corporate events. Everything else was the same except that headline. So I encourage people, whatever area you're at work is, test things out. Try a joke. Try a different subject line, even for your email. Test things out. You will feel less nervous and more comfortable. This is one of the big secrets, Pete, for stand-up comedians. Somebody like Seinfeld isn't going to just do an hour-long special, like say on HBO. He's going to take it on the road first. He's going to road test it. He's going to see, this is getting a laugh. This isn't. And so whatever arena you're in with work is, test things, experiment, and social proof that you'll get from the reactions tells you, okay, I want to do more of that.
Mm-hmm. And a favorite tool?
So another book that influenced me big time is called Rocket Fuel. And so I think the tool would be 3 D questions I ask myself. Should I do this? Should I ditch it? Should I delegate it?
All right. And a favorite habit?
I'm discovering that the exercise that you'll do is the exercise that you enjoy. And so for me, and I live in Western North Carolina where it can suddenly rain or it can suddenly be sunny, but the habit is to go out and play disc golf now. So, because I don't know what's going to change with the weather. So I guess the answer would be to choose fun exercise as soon as you can do it every day.
All right. And is there a key soundbite that you're known for, an Adam original that really resonates with folks and they quote back to you often?
It doesn't have to be filthy to be funny.
And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
I would send them to thelaughterfactor.com. Don't forget the word the. And by the way, if they go to thelaughterfactor.com, in 4 minutes, they can discover their unique laugh language because there's a fun quiz that you can take and it'll show you more about your way of being funny.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Yeah, I think sometimes we're so pressured to, hey, get more productive, be more collaborative. I experienced this myself in my comedy work. It's like, I have to stop and go, wait, I know I can make people laugh on stage, for example, but I need to make sure I'm receiving what I'm giving out. And so that would be my encouragement to your listeners is make sure you're also receiving what you're giving.
Mm-hmm. All right. Adam, thank you.
I've had a great time. And hey, if you ever get that car back, I want to ride.
Okay. Yeah. I really appreciated Adam's take on swapping icebreakers for jokes because it takes so much of the pressure off and you can build that fun, build that connection, build that trust with just a few great questions in your back pocket ready to pull out. I might recommend you spend some time, maybe with the book, maybe with AI, to generate a few of these great questions so you're ready to go. If you want to check out the show notes, the transcript, or the links to items that we've referenced, please drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1096. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
I've got 20 minutes till Run Club meets, and it's time for a quick pre-workout snack. Go Squeeze Active Fruit Blend to the rescue. Made with select B vitamins to help release energy, it's an easy, squeezable pouch made to move with me. The taste? So good. And made with real fruit. Even better. Whether I'm hitting the trail or meeting my friends on the court, this is my go-to on-the-go snack. Quick, easy, ready when I am. When it's go time, I go with Go Squeeze Active. Snag yours on your next door run. Search for Go Squeeze on Amazon.